For some of us, this meeting is being live streamed. By staying in this meeting, you consent. Yes. Got it. For some of us, I guess that's disclaimer notice.
We'll give everybody another minute or so to get in. Jose, I'm going to make you co-host.
Okay.
I know I need to get back to do more.
No chin tonight?
I don't know. I'm texting him right now asking. I'm wondering if we are really having problems because we only have, usually we have a 50% no-show rate, and we're at 75% no-show rate right now. So I don't know what's going on. But I guess people, the live stream is up to YouTube, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Is there a Dodger game tonight?
I mean, that always is a problem. All right, I'm going to mute everybody. And then we'll go ahead and unmute later and let you ask our questions. Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Botts-Forbes. I am the LAFD CERT Central Bureau Coordinator. Tonight's presentation is on neighborhood response to a disaster, the start to finish. So we're gonna give you the big picture of what one way that the community emergency response team and the neighborhood can respond after an earthquake or other disaster. For those of you who have done any kind of planning in your lives, any kind of big picture planning or even small planning, event planning, you're probably familiar with the idea that the only part of the plan that you can rely on is that nothing will go according to plan. You hope that everything will go according to plan, but really you need to be able to adapt and adjust and realize that the best laid plans sometimes don't go the way you want them to go. However, the reason why you have a plan is because you need to know where you're going. And the idea of the plan is not necessarily that everything is going to go according to plan, but when things go off the rails, you really want a roadmap on how to get back to the plan. You can always expect that things will deviate, things will go slightly sideways, hopefully not completely derail. But if you have the plan, at least a semblance of a plan, you kind of know where certain key road marks are, certain key parts of the plan are, and you have that guide to what the plan should look like. Really, it's knowing where you're starting, knowing where you're finishing, and everything in the middle is kind of a gray area. So you want to try and focus on, okay, these are the key elements that we have in the plan, and even though things are kind of wobbly here, if we can get back to this, we know where we're going, and then hopefully at the end you look back and you're where you wanted to end up. One thing that's important to realize is that if you have a rigid plan and if you stick to it and say everything has to go according to plan, we cannot have any deviations. everything has to be rigid, everything has to be on point, it's a recipe for failure. And it's never a good idea to be so stuck to the plan that you can't have flexibility, you can't have adjustments, you can't have deviations that you can then adjust for and adapt to. Community emergency response team has 3 guiding principles. The first is do the greatest good for the greatest number of people in the shortest amount of time. The second is do not bring a victim to an incident. And third one is be flexible. That again, I'll harp on that over and over again, is critical. When we teach CERT, a lot of times they say, well, you can't really predict what's going to happen, so it's hard to plan for things. And you shouldn't plan because you don't even know where things are going to go. But what we've developed is really a plan to give you kind of a roadmap, and it's not going to work every single time. But the idea is that if you have key indicators, key roadmap, key points on the road that you know where things are going, it's your guide stone, you know, this is what it should look like or what it could look like, versus starting from scratch and having no idea how you're going to even implement what you need to do, let alone sometimes you don't even know what you need to do. So what we're going to talk about tonight are really a very broad, 50,000 mile view of what one plan could look like. So when you end up standing on your street with your neighbors at 2:30 in the morning after the earthquake, or you have a hurricane bearing down on top of you and you're standing out there with your neighbors, you go, okay, we've kind of seen what this could look like, and we have an idea now where we need to go. So that's how we're going to get started, and this is where we're going to end up. And I encourage everyone to work with their local teams to really develop a plan, understanding that it needs to be flexible, but at least if everyone's on the same page and everybody knows, okay, we're going to have a staging area, we're going to have damage assessment teams, we're going to have incident response teams, we're going to have a medical treatment area, then everyone is under the same operating picture and everyone can play to the strengths of what they're good at and focus on the skills instead of focus on, hey, how do we even get started? The Incident Command System, ICS, has 2 guiding principles as well. Number 1 is everyone has one and only boss, unless you happen to be the boss, the head person in charge. Everyone reports to somebody. And more importantly, you don't report to 2 different people. A lot of times conflict happens where you have multiple people in charge and they're giving you conflicting direction and you don't know whose direction you should be following, versus, okay, I know the person who's directly above me and they are giving me the direction. Any other direction I'm free to ignore or direct them over to my boss, and that will resolve the issue. The second guiding principle is no one can have more than 7 people under their command. And this is called span of control. You want to make sure that if you are in charge of people, you can, and they're direct reports to you, that you have enough bandwidth to be able to keep oversight over them. Not so much that you want to micromanage them, but if you have 50 people underneath you, it's almost impossible to know what every one of those 50 people are doing at any given time. But if you have less than 7, it's a lot easier to track those people and make sure that they're able to accomplish what they need to accomplish, and develop that direct relationship that they should have and you should want with them. While 7 is the magic number, 3 to 5 is actually optimal. The more people you have that report to you directly, the more likely it is that you're going to lose track of them or not be able to give them the attention that they need. The Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT, training was developed by the Los Angeles Fire Department in 1985. And the city at that time really realized that the sheer number of people living in the city versus the number of firefighters, during a disaster, those numbers don't work. And so they really understood that they need to have the community trained to a certain level so that when that earthquake happens, the big one, which we're still waiting for, some 40 something years later, we can help each other out, help our neighbors out, while the firefighters, the paid staff, the paid first responders, and professionals in the city can focus on the people who desperately need their help or are going to die, versus the people who really want their help, but can self-sustain, and with the help of their neighbors actually be able to survive without needing the professionals involved immediately. And this was always free training taught by the firefighters of the city of Los Angeles. And to this day, the LA City CERT unit, LAFD CERT unit, has actual sworn firefighters teaching the class. This training has been broken into components, and they really teach you how to be prepared for a major disaster, such as an earthquake, how to properly and safely use a fire extinguisher, which includes knowing when the fire is too big that you can't handle it, and making sure you don't do something that puts yourself in danger while trying to do something outside your skill or equipment level. How to tell if it's safe to enter a building. This came out of the Mexico earthquake, which LAFD went down to observe after the earthquake happened in Mexico City. And they saw the community coming out and helping each other. And they knew that that would happen. Unfortunately, these people weren't trained. And the next morning when the aftershock hit, a lot of the rescuers were in places that were not safe, in buildings that were structurally damaged, and that aftershock caused those buildings to collapse. And it killed a lot of the rescuers, community rescuers. And so the training teaches us first and foremost to make sure that we're safe at what we're doing and keep our neighbors, our partners safe as well. FEMA uses markings to tell if a team has gone into a building and how many or what they've found in the building. And so the CERT curriculum teaches us as well how to mark and search a building safely, even if it's pitch black and full of dust and you can't see in front of you. There's ways to search the building, and especially if you hear someone crying for help, someone's in there. Your team can go in and safely locate them and extricate them. And that the class teaches that. How to do basic disaster first aid. This is not a first aid CPR class, but it does teach bandaging, how to use a triangular bandage, how to sling someone's arm if they've had an injury to it, how to bandage a head injury, stuff very basic level, but stuff that will help keep an injury from getting worse. And then finally, how to organize and lead untrained neighbors and do so safely. They really expect the people who've taken the training to become leaders in their own community. And the expectation is after the earthquake, when the fire department is going where they're needed and not where everybody wants them to be, that the people who are trained and wearing the green vests, green helmets with the green backpacks, your neighbors know that you've been trained by the fire department, and the expectation is that they will look to you for leadership. In 1993, FEMA was looking for a program to take nationwide as a community level emergency or disaster response program. And they picked the Los Angeles Fire Department's program, Community Emergency Response Team. And since they've taken it over, it has expanded to all 50 states. It's expanded to countries all over the world. And in fact, our fire department goes and teaches some of these other countries as they start their CERT programs. So it's a very good program, and a lot of people have been trained over the last several decades. They've been trained in a lot of skills. And one thing that we noticed is during our lessons, our years as coordinators, years as running CERT drills, trying to organize our neighbors, that while they teach the skills, sometimes putting it together isn't taught. And again, it goes back to the idea, well, how can you plan for a disaster that could vary from it's an earthquake, it's a tornado, it's a hurricane, it's a flood, it's a blizzard. It's really all hazards. It could be anything. It could be a man-made disaster. So telling people what to do and putting it on paper becomes risky. So what we've done as CERT coordinators is we've developed the neighborhood team format, and it's really lessons learned over the last numerous years, if not decades. Some coordinators have been doing this for quite some time. It's okay, that drill didn't go well. Why didn't it go well, and how can we fix it so next time we don't make the same mistakes? We're very fortunate in LA City to not have really too many disasters. Northridge was probably the most recent one that was significant, but it was a localized disaster in the valley on the west side. If you were in coastal San Pedro or east or northeast LA, even maybe downtown LA, you lost power, but you didn't have any structural damage, at least not to the level that they did on the west side and in the valley. So we really don't know what a true regional disaster is going to look like. We don't get them like other parts of the country. We don't get hurricane season. We don't get tornado season. And thank God, I know we have people on from other parts of the country, and we thank you for coming. And I don't know that I could live in a place where literally the sky is going to reach down and grab my home, or at least there's a threat of that. Of course, you'll say the same thing about the earth shaking and opening up and swallowing our homes. So it really depends on your perspective. But the lessons learned, bearing in mind what we're going to talk about tonight, is from our perspective in LA City. And of course, everything needs to be customized to your particular environment. We've developed step-by-step guides, and they're designed to be broad and general enough that they can be templates and implement at a much wider scale, but they do need to be customized to your particular needs. And maybe you don't have the resources that we do. You don't have as many CERT trained people. And that's not to say that it's unrealistic, but it is a goal that we want to train our neighbors. We want to have more people ready to respond in case of a disaster and prepared with plenty of food and water, with supplies, with go bags. And we really encourage you to share this information with your neighbors. But it can be aspirational at the same time. We've developed standardized procedures, and the drills that we do are based on standardized drill templates, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. We've really developed a whole community disaster response strategy that's based on two directions. The training from the CERT from the fire department is very top down, and it's very much the case in a lot of parts of the country where the government is providing the training. They run the program, the CERT program in their area, and you can see that because a lot of fire departments are very regimental. They're very organized in that structure, that there's one person at the top and everyone follows direction. But that doesn't work at a community level when you have people who come in and out of the community and people who've been there for a while. So we've developed a bottom-up strategy for this, where we really build the team at that local block level. It's not the government setting up the team. It's not the government identifying all the pieces. It's you and your neighbors saying, hey, we've been here for 30 years. We're probably going to be here for another 30. The people who are professionals and career-minded in the fire department, they're going to be here for a few years, maybe 5 years at the most, and then they're going to move on, and we're going to get someone new that then is going to have their own vision, or that we're going to have to train, because we are the program. It's our program. And so that's when we encourage the teams to really exist at that block level. It's you, your neighbors, and your team. And we've developed this to really be a turnkey system for new team leaders, people who say, how do I get started? And while it's turnkey and templated, it does, again, need to be customized to your particular area. But we feel that it should work out of the box with some tweaks, especially. So the CERT training is generalist. They teach you to do all the roles. And that is ideal, because if you say this person is going to be the radio operator, this person is going to be the team leader, this person is the planning officer, this person's operations, and then inevitably they're out of town when that hurricane comes through, because, I mean, you get some warning. I wouldn't want to be there when the hurricane comes through, but they're on vacation when the earthquake strikes, or they're flying off to Mexico to avoid the blizzard that's coming through your state. You don't want to be in the position where that key role is vacant, or the person who's supposed to be there isn't there, and you don't have anyone to back them up and fill that role. So everyone cross-training, everyone being able to do all the roles is a great idea. It's not necessarily realistic, but everyone should cross-train. If you know you're weak in something at a drill, you should take the opportunity to practice the skills that you know you're not great at, so you can become better at them. And so when you're put in that position where that role is needed, you're able to step up and say, hey, I'm not great at this, but at least I've practiced this. I can do it until someone better comes along. What we've done with the neighborhood team program format is we've really broken out roles and identified 4 key roles. And that way there's not, they talk about the incident command system in CERT training, and they say, if you look at an incident command chart, there are hundreds of roles. And it's great to understand incident command system, but we don't live it. We don't work it every day. And the expectation that we're going to be able to operate an incident command tree and know all the roles and how they all work together, I think is unrealistic. It's great if we understand it, so that when we work with the fire department, we say, oh yeah, we learned about that in the training. So we've broken it down really into 4 key roles, and these can be slotted into any incident command tree. You have the team leader. That's the person who people report to and who gives direction. But really their number one duty is to keep the team safe. They guide, they provide kind of the rhythm of the team. Their personality and their guidance will determine the flow of that team. If you have someone who's nervous and not confident, the entire team feels it. If you have someone who steps up and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, this is your role, this is your role, this is your role, this is what our duties are, the entire team feels that as well. And I think if you have a great team leader, the entire team flows much better. But it is a learned skill. Some people, let's be very frank, will never become team leaders, or maybe should not become team leaders. But there are some people who they have the skills, they have the knowledge, and when they do certain skills, they're great at it. They can become great team leaders. They just need the practice and they need the coaching. They need to understand that it's not something that everyone is just born with, but some people can learn it and some people can't, unfortunately. The team leader has to maintain the big picture. They can't get sucked in and go hands-on. They need to keep the 360-degree view of the situation and keep their team safe. As a hard and fast rule, under the neighborhood team program format, all team leaders must be CERT trained. And that it's simply because the skills you learn in the CERT training, that is how you're going to keep other team members safe. Scribes are, quite frankly, I consider it the most important member on the team. If it wasn't written down, it didn't happen. You're going to constantly be referring back to the documentation that the scribe maintains. And a lot of times during drills, when people get assigned the role of scribe, they think it's an inferior role and they really don't want to do it. You need to have legible handwriting. So I can't read my own handwriting, so I should never be the scribe. But that documentation is so critical to maybe not what's happening immediately, but what happens in the next hour, what happens 3 hours from now, what happens tomorrow. That documentation will constantly be revisited. And the role of the scribe really is to track and share information. One of our coordinators, our Valley coordinator, actually suggested that the scribe could be the team leader's deputy. And where this is a great idea is because the deputy position has to be able to step into the role of the team leader, in this case, and take over and do everything that the team leader does. The scribe knows everything that's going on because they documented everything. So they make a great deputy simply because they know what's going on. And so if you look at it that way, you're not just a lowly scribe, you're a team leader in training. And I encourage everybody who has legible handwriting to understand the value of the scribe and step up as a scribe if you're capable of doing it. A radio communicator or radio operator is in charge of communicating on the radio. It's a pretty simple concept. However, it's a difficult skill to really develop, and it takes practice. Communicating on the radio sounds simple, push to talk, release to listen, but it's formulating the thought of the message of what you're going to say and be able to say it clearly, concisely, and in an even tone and manner and rate. You have some people who they feel the adrenaline pumping and they talk a mile a minute into the radio. And on the other side, you're going, what? Wait, say that again. What? Can you repeat that? And it's really frustrating when they don't slow down and take their time to say it. But at the same time, you have people who will start to talk really slowly, and what should be a 10-second message takes over a minute to pass traffic. And that becomes just as frustrating, if not more so. So it's really a skill that I encourage everyone should have a two-way radio, a family radio service. Everyone should practice communicating on the radio. We know cell phones will fail during a disaster. And so you being able to talk on two-way radio is really going to extend the range of your team, and it's really going to be a force multiplier, because if you have to walk 3 blocks every time you want to pass some information to the staging area or to another team, it really slows down everything. And eventually people will just get exhausted and they can't continue. So having those radios and being good at radio communication is critical. And that is, quite frankly, the hardest part of our drills. It's the radio communication. And it's simply because people don't get enough practice on the radio. The fourth role is, if you're not a team leader, you're not a scribe, you're not a radio communicator, you're a hands-on responder. We wrap everything else up into that. They do whatever else is necessary. What this allows them to do is, when they're assigned a task, however, they can focus simply on that task. They don't have to worry about talking on the radio, documenting. They know those key positions are doing those jobs. They don't have to worry about keeping the team safe. They can focus on what's in front of them be it if they're doing medical or they're putting up caution tape or they're doing search and rescue, they're turning gas off in a building. They know that someone, the team leader, is making sure that they're going to make it home safely. And in the case of if you don't have hands-on responders, a scribe and radio communicator can become a hands-on responder pair. You notice I do say pair. The training says we don't do anything alone, so we always have people paired up. Scribe and radio operator are a pair. Team leader, scribe and radio operator are a trio command element, and then hands-on responders are always in pairs, and they need to do everything together. You never want to separate. Even if you have to go to the restroom, make sure you're within earshot of each other and you're accountable to each other. You're a buddy team, making sure that each other's safe. And we've broken down the types of teams really to 4 core types. You have a staging area, and this staging area is tracking the teams. They're prioritizing the incidents. They're figuring out where they're listening to the teams out in the field, documenting what's coming in, and then prioritizing where the teams are going to go to actually do good. You have to keep in mind that the staging area is blind and deaf. They have no idea what's going on until they're told, and they can't hear, or they just they rely on the teams in the field to really get information and develop the big picture and how to respond to the incident or the disaster around them. They'll use the damage assessment team, and this team exists really for the first hour or so of an incident. They're walking predetermined routes. They're out there. They are the eyes and ears of the staging area. They're reporting in the incidents as they go out and find them. They're looking for where people need help. If you're walking in a damage assessment team, you're not going door to door because that will take forever, but you're looking for help signs. You're listening for people blowing a whistle. You're listening for people screaming for help. You're badged and identifiable with your green vest and helmet. So if people see you, they run up to you and say, "Oh my God, thank you for coming. I need your help. My mother's trapped. She's under the refrigerator. It fell over during the earthquake. I can't get her out." You really want to be that visible community that can be visible professional response when the fire department's not there. People will be looking for help. People will be panicking, and that being hopefully, unfortunately, the reality is that most people don't know what the community emergency responses team is. But if they do, they see the green vest and helmet. They know that there are people who are trained there to help. The second and most important team is going to be that incident response team. And after the initial damage assessment's done, everyone will roll up into an incident response team, and the staging area will deploy these incident response teams into the field to 2 incidents to deal with them, bring them to a conclusion. And it could be anything. It could be you need to put up caution tape. You need to keep people away from down wires. You need to turn off gas. You need to do medical. It's really any kind of incident out there an incident response team will deal with. The medical treatment area is where you're going to bring people back to. If you need to get somebody to the hospital, instead of asking the fire department to go to 15 different places around the block, having all of your survivors back at one location not only allows you to prioritize the resources so that you can say, okay, we have a medical team here. They're going to stabilize and keep everybody alive until the fire department can arrive. But then also the fire department knows, okay, we're going here, and then we're taking them to the hospital, and then we're coming back, or we're going to the next casualty collection point. So instead of having to bounce around, it really consolidates the expenditure of resources. And then I mentioned the radio communication. So we've really developed the 5 Ws to make it simple. If you format your radio communication in this format, you're going to be successful in passing radio traffic, getting your message across. It's prioritizing and doing it in this order. Who are you trying to reach? Who are you? Where are you? What do you have and what do you need? You're trying to call staging. You're a damage assessment team. You have an injury and you need an incident response team to deal with it. Staging, this is Alpha Team. We're at the corner of walk and don't walk. We have a 15-year-old male trip and fall with a head strike, unconscious. We need an incident response team and transportation to the medical treatment area. That's clear, concise, and to the point. That's all you need to say on the radio. If staging has any more questions for you, they will ask. But you've got your point across. You called the who you're trying to reach and told them who you are. You told them where you are. So if your radio drops dead at that point, at least they know where to find you. And then sometimes you don't have a need, but you just have situational awareness. But this format is a good way to, if you jot down the answers to these questions and just read them off as bullet points. Staging, Alpha Team, we're at the corner of walk and don't walk, 15-year-old male, head strike, unconscious, need incident response team. It's as simple as that. And the person on the other end of the radio will have exactly what they need, and then they'll ask you for any more questions that they have. This is optional. We've been slowly deploying these throughout the city of Los Angeles. A staging area kit is really everything you need for the first 3 hours of operation. It's designed to get the staging area up and running. You have a magnetic whiteboard with a map of the surrounding area, clipboards that are labeled, radios that are labeled, all the forms are there. It's reproducible and it's standardized. So that all of our staging areas have the same basic setup, so that if you train in any part of the city and you see their staging area, it's going to look very much like your own. Now, of course, there aren't enough staging areas, there's not enough staging area kits, and there never will be. But we work, our 501c3 works with neighborhood councils to do neighborhood purpose grants to fund these kits. We're not asking people to come out of pocket on these and invest their own money. There's money out there that this is not something that you should be trying to fund on your own. However, one thing that we're doing differently than has been done in the past is our foundation owns the kit, and then we work with the local team to maintain it. That way, if something happens to the team or whoever owns the kit, it doesn't disappear or become a mysterious white box that no one has the key, no one has access to, no one knows what it's there for, but it's been there for 30 years, as has been the case in a lot of efforts in the past. The reason why our 501c3 owns it is because if the fire department or the city owns it, sometimes it just disappears or it gets reallocated, or there's a change in priority and these things disappear. So we want to offer continuity through our 501c3. There is room for additional supplies. So some of the staging area kits have additional added elements to them, additional radios, maybe a repeater system or something like that. We discourage water and food. Some of our kits do have maybe 50-year water, but we've had cases where there's been boxes put out there for CERT members 5 years after they were deployed out. The team goes to take a look at them and assess them, and the rats have gotten into them, and everything has to be discarded because it's just a biohazard at that point. So we really want to minimize what's in there. Everyone should be bringing their own supplies. There's a medical resupply kit in there and a jump bag. it's not for people to stock up. It's for people to restock. So you bring your own supplies, and then as you burn through them, you come back and restock so you can go back out. It's not designed to furnish the members who come to the staging area. One thing that we do require is that there is 24/7 access. Again, it goes back to, well, it's behind lock and key, and the person with the key is in Bermuda right now. And now we just have a box that looks pretty. Pricing is something, again, we're not asking anybody to come out of pocket on these. So we've really broken down the neighborhood response flow to 9 key points. Take care of your family and home first. Assess your immediate neighborhood block. This follows the Ready Your LA neighborhood or Map Your Neighborhood golden hour. Set up a neighborhood staging area. Deploy out damage assessment teams. Augment and staff the staging area to be able to handle the needs of the teams in the field, so it doesn't become complete and total chaos, and you can manage it. Deploy out incident response teams. Have a CERT liaison team go to the fire department's command post and communicate with the staging areas so they can send information upward, let the fire department know where you need them. Prepare for the next operational period and demobilization. And this isn't stuff that we just created on our own. This is standard FEMA planning P, at least elements are. This is what the professionals do. There's a question about, is there an application for a staging area kit? No, there's not. We want to work with our teams in the field and build this organically. I will answer questions at the end, so if you can hold them, let's get through the presentation. So step number 1 is take care of your family and home. If you are worried about your family, if someone's been injured, if you have damage to your home, you can't help your neighbors. You're going to be distracted. You can't safely help your neighbors. You're going to be distracted. So focus on your family first. Take care of them first. If there's injuries, don't help your neighbors. Take care of your family first. If everyone is safe, there's no damage, then, and you want to, help your neighbors. One of the first few things you should do, turn on your radio. After you've assessed your home, check in. Report any status and injuries. If you hear other people checking in, then you start building situational awareness. It can sound simple, especially if you're the first one on the radio. Just report your call sign, and if there's any injuries or damage. And it sounds something like this. This is Cabrillo 1, no injuries, no damage. Or this is Figaro 3, my daughter fell down the stairs and broke her leg. I have minor cracks on the window. Or this is Avenue 65, no injuries. We have an X crack in one of our walls. You start hearing that, you know that the damage is pretty severe. You start hearing injuries, you know that this is a pretty significant incident and that you're going to have to do something about it. But everybody reports in no injuries, no damage. Then it's not that big a deal, and maybe take a casual walk around the block, make sure, hey, everyone's good, cool, go back to your life. But you start hearing about buildings collapsing, X cracks in walls, injuries. You know that people are going to be injured, that there will be, maybe people don't realize that their building is not safe to be into and stay in, and you need to help your neighbors out at that point. Always protect your heads. Always protect your head, hands, and feet. If you get an injury to your head, you bump into something hits you in the head, you're going to be out of commission pretty easily. If you cut up your hands or your feet, you're not going to be able to walk. You're not going to be able to do stuff. And it takes you out very quickly. So gloves, closed-toed shoes, boots if you have them, safety boots especially are great. You're going to be stepping on debris possibly. And if you have something that's soft sole and a nail goes through it into your foot, it's not going to be fun and it's going to take you out of commission. You touch something hot and burn your hand, you're not going to be able to do anything with that hand. Next, inspect your natural gas. Make sure that you don't see, smell, or hear a leak. If you do, turn off the gas. If there's no leak, don't turn off the gas. It's that simple. But if you have a leak, that leak could actually catch fire, or if it's leaking gas in your home and it's sealed up, could actually become an explosion. After Northridge, most people didn't know how to turn off their gas, and a lot of homes caught fire and burned down because of natural gas leaks. So just being able to turn off your gas or your neighbor's gas if there's a leak can actually save their home. You want to shut off the main water to protect the water that's inside the building. So there's water inside the pipes. There's water in the hot water tank if you have one. There's even water in your toilets in the tank behind it. However, water mains run parallel to sewage pipes. And so if there's a breach in a water main, there's probably a breach in the sewer, and it can contaminate the water that's coming into your home. Also, if there's a leak in the main line, it can drain the water out of your hot water tank. So turning off the water is a safe thing to do, and it will protect what you have, and then allows you to utilize that. And especially if you have like a 50-gallon water tank, that's a lot of water. That can last you for days, weeks even. Post a help okay sign. If everything's good, post the okay sign. Let people know. If you need help and you're helping the person that needs help, put up the help sign, and hopefully a team will come by and support you and help you. The Map Your Neighborhood and Ryland programs talk about putting a fire extinguisher on the sidewalk. This is especially if you leave your home, even putting out 2 fire extinguishers so that you can have someone else put out a fire that might be at risk of burning your home down while you're not there. In the city of Los Angeles, we have a theft problem. So I wouldn't necessarily put my fire extinguisher out where everyone can see it, but I might have it out of the way and let my neighbors know where they are, so that if something does happen, they have the resources there to hopefully put out a fire before it becomes too big and risks burning down my place. That Map Your Neighborhood and Ryland, Ready Your LA Neighborhood Golden Hour is where you're assessing your immediate block. You have a gathering site where all your neighbors are going to meet, and this should be pre-planned, should be visible. You want all your neighbors to come out, and hopefully it's not the first time you're meeting your neighbors, but it's everyone starting to organize and see, because at this point you still don't know how bad it is. Communicate with them, share information, start looking for help signs, looking for any signs of damage. And this is, again, just your immediate block. You're not going far away. You're listening for people calling for help or blowing whistles. And then you're documenting this so that a team can come back and investigate if they do need help. You want to send teams of 3 or at least pairs. But make sure this is where you start to realize no one's going anywhere alone. If you go alone and you get injured and nobody knows where you are, it's going to be very difficult for you to get help. But if you're with someone and you get injured or they get injured, they can go get help. If you have family radio service radios, this is where you're starting to communicate on the radio to your neighborhood block. If you don't, it's a short distance, you can send runners fairly easily. And then you want to set up a medical treatment area. You want to set up safe locations for young children or elderly so that they can take care of each other. And they make great pairs, children and elderly. Elderly is people who don't think they're capable of being out walking a good distance and getting involved in helping out each other. It's a personal call. Maybe these are people who have injuries that prevent them from doing this as well. and then meet back regularly at the gathering site, and report information and gather new resources. When you realize that this is more than a small incident, and this really does involve advanced training. The training, if you're a community emergency response team trained, this is going to be a larger response. You want to set up the staging area. Unlike the neighborhood gathering site, this is not a visible location. You don't want this in the middle of the square where everyone can see it. You want this out of the way. And the reason is that you don't want people coming up to it who are not part of your group, who are not trained, or who aren't there to help you. You don't want them coming up and asking questions like, "My power's out. When's the power coming back? My TV doesn't work. My internet's down." They will do that, and they will bog down that response. So that's why the staging area is planned to be out of the way. But if you know your neighbors are capable, encourage them to come with you and help at a larger level. And everyone should know everyone who's trained, everyone who's part of the planning of this response should go there at a certain point when they realize this is bigger than just a small incident. First person who is at the staging area is in charge of the staging area. Community emergency response team bases a lot of their stuff on the incident command system. We used to talk about the incident commander. In general, CERT will never be the incident commander, but the staging manager is in charge of the staging area. So the first person there is the staging manager. You can have multiple roles assigned to you as part of incident command system. So you're not just the staging manager, your operations, your incident command, you're doing all these roles until you can delegate them. But the person in charge of staging area is the staging manager, and that will never change, even if the person does. So when you get there, sign in. If you're the first person there, sign in yourself. Then sign in other people on the personnel resources form. You want to start getting ready for people to show up and start building the team. So you want to lay out clipboards and radios, make it very easy to deploy out teams. Damage assessment teams are going to be Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. And they will always be Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, because you don't want to think, okay, is Delta an incident response team or a damage assessment team? The idea is it's turnkey, so you don't have to think. We've already thought about the details for you. Everything's labeled. You just follow the guide. Incident response teams will be Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, and Hotel. And we just use the NATO alphabet, so it's simple and it's pronounceable over radio and understandable over radio. Put up a map board and start listening to the radio, documenting any incidents that you hear over the radio so that you can get people to investigate them. As people start arriving, if they're going to stay with you at staging, they'll be assigned the role of scribe or radio communicator. If they're going to go in the field, then they could be a team leader, radio operator, scribe, or possibly a hands-on responder. Staging area is going to track the team locations. This is critical. If you have a team that goes missing, they fall out of radio range, or you've lost contact with them for half an hour, 45 minutes, even an hour, you need to know where their last known location was, because you want to go find them, find out what happened to them. Maybe they fell into a sinkhole. Maybe they were dumb. They went into a building and didn't tell you, and the building collapsed on top of them. You're responsible for your responders and making sure everyone makes it home safe. So you want to know where they were and make sure they're sharing that information so you can update it in case something happens to them. We just did an exercise in the mid-city area of Los Angeles, and what was not really realized was that there were radio dead spots, and two of the teams wandered into those radio dead spots and were not heard from for, I think, about half an hour. And the staging area didn't realize that they were not hearing from their teams and didn't realize that maybe something happened to them and they should go investigate. So this is critical. This is something you want to make sure you're doing. And I think an exercise is different than real life. You're probably going to be realizing it a little bit more in real life than you will in the exercise, but it is something to practice during the exercises, practice during the drills. Get into this habit now. And of course, the staging area is going to prioritize the incidents and figure out, okay, this is where we need to send people next. Next team that's available, or nearest team that's going to become available, needs to go there. And oh, this one became a higher priority. You're constantly reevaluating. The professionals use command boards in the field, and that's really, so at a glance, everybody knows what's going on. You want to identify who's in charge. Where are you? What are the teams in the field? If you're using color markers or pins or something, identify the color so you can track, okay, blue team is alpha team, green team is bravo team, red team is delta team or Charlie team. And then where's your closest fire station? Where's the LAFD command post or the fire department command post, if you know? How many incidents do you have right now? How many are still active? Where's the medical treatment area? How many immediate survivors do you have that need medical attention? How many delayed? Do you have transportation resources? And where's the closest hospital? These are kinds of things you want to track on the command board so that anyone who takes over, say, a new staging manager comes in, or the team is getting briefed, all that information is in one place. Fire department shows up, you have all that information there that you can share with them, readily available. When we talk about documentation, we have a few guiding principles on it, and everyone needs to check in and everyone needs to check out. And that includes the first person there, the staging manager. You want to make sure you have accountability for your people. If somebody goes missing, who was that person? And do we have any kind of contact number or something? Where were they last seen? Who were they with? Who was responsible for them? This is kind of tracking that you want to do at the staging area. Somebody says, oh, I'm done. I've had enough of this. I'm going home, and they don't check out. You want to make sure that you're able to track them down and verify they're okay, and it wasn't someone falling into a hole somewhere, or getting dragged off by wild coyotes, or they stepped on a wire and nobody saw them go down. That's the most terrifying thing, is you have a responder or a team that's gone missing. So accountability is key. And again, for the documentation, if it wasn't written down, it didn't happen. So document everything. We'll talk about the damage assessment teams. And again, so for simplicity's sake, again, this is designed to be a turnkey system. We've thought about this for you so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I say this because we've done cert drills in the past, refreshers in the past, and it's awesome when you have 100 cert members at a refresher and they say, okay, a train derailed, set up your command post and go to work. And after a couple shouting matches and egos are put to rest, it's great to see the skills put into play and survivors rescued, treated, and transported, and it's awesome. I say after a couple shouting matches, because what happens is, and some of our older members can attest to this, if you have to figure out what you're doing, then there will be conflicts. You will have disagreements. You will have egos at play. You will have someone who says, okay, I'm the team leader, you're going to do this. And you have someone who says, I've been doing this for longer than you have. I know what I'm doing and you're wrong. And it's whoever ego is bigger, and whoever concedes first, typically, and that has to get out of the way. And if you're the team leader, the staging manager, sometimes ego management at this point. The reason why we've kind of written out these plans is so that you have less of that. Hopefully, if everybody says, okay, this is what the plan is, then you don't have the egos arguing over what the plan is and how to create the plan and how to invent the plan. And we did this 30 years ago when I was in ski patrol. And the person's like, well, I just got my EMT last year and I've been working 911 and this is what the current protocol is. And you're wrong because you're out of date by 30 years. It is flexible. However, we do say that no more than 4 damage assessment teams, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and they will always be Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. You may not have 4 teams. Maybe you only have 3 teams. Delta will always be a damage assessment team because you don't want to have to think, okay, I'm hearing from Delta. Is that an incident response team? When we practiced, we had 3 teams, and I don't remember who these people are. It should be very clear. Okay, Alpha team, Bravo team, Charlie team, they're damage assessment teams, Echo, Foxtrot, those are incident response teams. You don't have to think about it. The damage assessment teams will have exactly 3 people on them: team leader, radio communicator, and scribe. And that's because a pair is not a team. And this comes from the fire department. This is training that we've heard from the professionals. A team is minimum 3 people. And so, this is intentional. A pair or 2 pairs, if you have 4 people on a damage assessment team, you can split them into 2 pairs very easily. But if no one can go anywhere by themselves, it's very difficult to split or want to split 3 people. And everyone has a job. You have a team leader, a radio operator, or a communicator, and a scribe. What's the 4th person do if there's 4 people on your damage assessment team? Now, sometimes you only have 2 people that can go in the field, and so you have to adjust. And maybe it is a pair that's going out there. But these are the guidelines. And so when we drill and practice, we should stick to the guidelines as much as possible, knowing that reality may not give us the privilege of exactly how we trained, but that's where the flexibility comes in. So I encourage you, when you drill, stick with the plan and then try and go to that every single time. The damage assessment team is going to find out who needs help. They're looking for problems. They're going to let staging know where these problems are, what you can do to help someone. If you encounter an incident and there's nothing you can do about it, and this always comes up, you find a dead body. That sucks. Is it an incident? It should be documented, but is there anything you can do about this dead body? If the answer is no, then it's not an incident. You have a fully engulfed home. Is there something you can do about it? You can, maybe. There's a good argument for this one. You can have a team there that's helping the neighbors in the surrounding homes do something about it, keeping them safe. But in general, you're not going to fight a fully fire that's too big for you to handle. So it's arguable if that one's an incident or not, but that's what the staging area is going to figure out. Find out how bad the incident is. If you have injuries, stabilize them, triage them, stabilize them, and then move on. And that's really what the damage assessment team does, is it lets staging know that you have an incident, sends as much information as staging requires, and then they move on to see what the next incident is. Your damage assessment route should be coverable in an hour. And if it's longer than that, you're going to wear out your team. If it's longer than that, you're not going to have resources. You're covering too much area. If it takes 2 hours to cover every single damage assessment route and you have 6 damage assessment routes, it's too big an area to really cover. So you have to keep things realistic. And this is why we constantly adjust as we drill, realizing, hey, we need to revisit this because it's not working well during the drills. And so we don't expect it to work well in real life. I normally I would say deploy out instant response teams at step 5, but I've changed this to augment the staging area because you need to not get overwhelmed. It's too easy to send all your resources out and then one person's trying to do everything and they become overwhelmed. And you want to try and avoid that as much as possible. So you want to add scribes and radio communicators to your team at staging so that you can adequately handle what you have in the field. You want to delegate as quickly as possible. If you're the staging manager, you want to get rid of the radio, you want to get rid of the clipboard to someone else. So you can keep that big picture. You're looking at the map board, you're identifying, you're looking at all the incidents, you're trying to figure out, okay, where do I need to send my next incident response team? And if you're signing people in and talking on the radio at the same time, you're going to miss something. Something's going to fall through the cracks. So you want to assign scribes to key roles that need to get covered. Personal sign-in, team formation, incident tracking, team tracking when they call in. Where are they? Where did they last report in? Okay, that needs to go on the board so I can see them. Incident response prioritization. Doesn't necessarily need to be the staging manager, but that staging manager should be involved to really give the guidance here. And then again, a scribe can be the deputy, their right-hand person. That way, if something happened to you, you need to step away. You just found out that your wife went into labor or your kid fell down the stairs, and you need to leave and go be with your family, then that deputy is going to step up and take over. And who best than the scribe who's been documenting a lot of this information? They know what's going on. Radio communication, get rid of that radio. We've seen drills where the staging manager would not give up the radio. I physically took it from him, gave it to someone else, and somehow he ended up with a radio. It was very difficult for him to focus on the big picture while he's talking to the teams in the field. So that's what the radio communicator does. Put them somewhere just kind of out of the way. They shouldn't be on top of it. And you should get a little bit of space in there so not everyone's crowding the staging area and congesting everything. And then this communicator should be working with a scribe or 2 scribes. When we do the staging area operations drills, we have a radio operator in the middle and 2 scribes sitting next to him. And that way, when the communication comes in, scribe number 1 documents everything. Scribe number 2 is listening for an incident. And then during the drills, swap out. Let everyone get some practice doing these. As the staging manager, it's your job to really identify the needs of the staging area and be proactive about it. If you see, okay, we have 4 teams out in the field right now. Our radio communicator is starting to get a little overwhelmed. We need a second radio communicator. Start looking for one. Be great even if you realize, I imagine when we get our 4th team in the field, it's going to start to get a little more difficult here. So maybe we get a radio communicator already set up and ready to go, so that when we get the 4th team in the field, we've already got the resources here in staging ready to go. It's ideal and it's a goal. Doesn't mean it's realistic, but everyone should have one job and one job only. But also no one should be doing nothing. Now deploy out your incident response teams. Again, you don't want to reuse the damage assessment team names. So if there's no Delta team in the field, you don't start at Delta, start at Echo. That way you always know what the name of the team is. And if Echo is calling in or Delta's calling in, you always know what kind of team that is in the field. It's one less thing to think about. And that's really what you want to try and avoid doing, is overthinking everything. Your your incident response teams are going to be 5 to 7 people. And again, we're using odd numbers here for a purpose. You're going to have that original command element, that team leader, radio communicator, and scribe. It's always going to be the same. That becomes a command element of the incident response team. Now you're going to add in responder pairs. Again, 2 people assigned as buddy teams. And you're either going to have 1 buddy team or you're going to have 2 buddy teams. So that's why it's 5 or 7. 3 plus 2 plus 2. No more, no less. And that, again, keeps things simple and keeps things paired off. If you have 3 hands-on responders, well, it's difficult to really split that off. If you have 4 hands-on responders, you can do 2 and 2, and they can do multiple things. It's better to actually hold back your 6th person. Send out a team of 5. 6th person stays back and either gets on the next team or augments staging. And again, you don't want to exceed that. If you have 8 people on the team, that team becomes too big. And the number includes the team leader. Don't think it's okay, it's team leader and 5 to 7 people. It's total size of the team. The job of the incident response team is they're going to be assigned an incident and they're going to go directly there. If they get waylaid by something else, report it in, but they need to know that the priority is to go to the incident that they've been deployed to and deal with that incident. You're always going to let staging know where you are. As you're taking turns, you're moving through the area, updates staging regularly. Give them status updates. When you get to the incident, call it in. Let them know that you're there. You're at incident number 5. This is what you have. Just confirming the details that they have. And let staging know if you need more resources, if you need transportation. When you're getting ready to be done, you're wrapping things up, let staging know this. So that staging can say, okay, Echo team is wrapping up at incident number 5. We can deploy them to another incident shortly. Let's figure out where they're going to go next. Don't pre-plan multiple incidents. You want to send them to one incident and one incident only. And then as they free up, then you plan out where they're going to go next. Because what happens if they get stuck at an incident, then the incidents that you've already assigned to them after incident number 1 may not get addressed. What you can do is you can break off a responder pair, again, by design. So if you need to leave a team pair somewhere, they have FRS radios, then you can break them off. So you let staging know, staging, this is Echo team. We're going to split off into 2 teams. Echo 1 is going to be the main team. We're going to have a responder pair as Echo 2. They're going to investigate a call for help while we continue on to incident number 5. And then you're in charge of Echo 2, and they're still part of your team. And the idea is that you're still responsible for them. So you're communicating with them on FRS. And if you don't have good radio communication, I would strongly advise don't do that. But if you have the capabilities and you have experienced people, it is a possibility that you can do. And as the team, you want to quickly and efficiently bring the incident to resolution. And then you're going to ask for a new incident so you can do more good. A CERT liaison team should try and go to the fire department command post. We know cell phones probably are not going to work. 911 is probably going to be overloaded and inundated. So there's going to be incidents that you have discovered at the block level that the fire department doesn't know about. And so having a team with the fire department command post on your radio communications, talking to your staging area, or talking to first in teams, if you have to break it up to that level, you can send information from the block level up to the fire department. You can say, we've got this incident. It's a fully engulfed home on fire. The neighboring homes are at risk. However, they do have water pressure and they're trying to fight it, or we've had to evacuate them. We need fire department resources to this. There's nothing you can do about that incident. That's where you need the fire department. And this is where we really see at the big picture, all this starting to come together. You're reporting from the block level an incident the fire department doesn't know about. up to the fire department so they can do something about it where you need help. But if you have a minor injury and you bandaged it and treated it and you sent them home, fire department doesn't need to know about that. You did good job. Let them deal with the stuff that you can't deal with. Fire station first in teams. We're sometimes told go to the local fire station. Well, during an earthquake, the fire station, the first thing they're going to do is leave the fire station and do a windshield assessment of their fire station first in. If it's bad, they're going to go to pre-designated staging areas and work together at a much larger level. They're probably not going to be back at the fire station. So if you go to the fire station looking to join the CERT team there's probably no one going to be there. It's going to be locked up. However, if you have someone who's designated to go to the fire station and wait for people, you're going to find that people who want to help will go to their fire station. And CERT trained members who you don't even know about will go to their fire station. These teams at the fire station, a fire station first in team, are command level team. They should know where all their staging areas are. They should be on the same radio communications with them. And they're going to be trying to coordinate resources, identify the incidents, and then try and get up to the fire department, let them know. What's cool about in the city of Los Angeles is on the front door or next to the front door of every fire station is a landline that goes directly to Metro Fire. So you can actually call in incidents from the fire station, even if no one's there. So this is why, and one thing is that people going who are designated to be part of the fire station first in team should be within walking distance of the fire station. It doesn't make sense you're going to drive across town to get to your fire station, unless you happen to be across town, and then you're going to have a contingency plan at that point. But again, there should be redundancy here. Having just one person assigned to this role is a bad idea. 2 people, 3 people is a better idea. And then let the fire department know, hey, call it in, and just tell them what has been reported to you. They'll determine what resources they can send, or if it's worthy of sending to them. They might have 50 other critical incidents ahead of you, and they'll get to it as soon as possible, but you're not their top priority, or the incident you're calling in is not their top priority. Operational periods tend to be 8, 12, or 24 hours, depending on the agency working on it and depending on the protocols. When you're working with volunteers, you need to make sure that the people who are not doing this full time, that are not experts, that are not maybe the most physically fit people who have other priorities like their families, you need to make sure that you, as a team leader, the staging manager, that you make sure your people don't burn out. An 8-hour operational period may not make sense. Maybe 4 hours. Swap them in and out quickly if you have the resources. Maybe it's you and your neighbor and you're doing as much as you can and you're the only people there. Then you're going to do what you can with the resources you have. This is a decision that you're going to make on your team's behalf. But what you want to do is, if you do have multiple teams and you're going to swap them in and out, you want to make sure that you properly hand off when you cycle out of teams. So if you're a new staging manager is going to take over, you brief them verbally and in person what's going on, what incidents are currently going on in the field. You let your team know, hey, I need to go home. Our deputy here is going to take over as staging manager. Make sure everybody knows and everyone understands. If you come back, that person briefs you as you take back over, and you relieve them. What teams are in the field, what incidents are pending, and what you think are the most critical things. Any issues, you have gas lines that have ruptured along this block, you have power lines down over here, things that might not be readily, might have been documented, might have been called in, but might not be on the map board. And then you update the command board and make sure that everybody keeps that thing up to date. That's one of the problems we have, is sometimes tracking the teams doesn't get priority on the map board. And so again, may not know where the team is. Well, if someone's taking over for you, they absolutely won't know where that team is. So it is something that needs to be emphasized. Demobilization. This is the goal, that you get everyone who's signed in to go home safely. However, and I'm guilty of this, every single drill we do, instead of stripping out the documentation and putting new fresh forms on the clipboards, I throw everything in the back of my truck and I go get food, or I go get something to drink, or whatever. I don't want to deal with it. And then the next time we do a drill, oh my God, I have to go through, clear out all the clipboards, put out all the forms again. If you can, it's a great idea to do all of this, capture all the paperwork, in case there's legal issues or historical records. Fire department wants to know what you guys were doing. Capture all that information and then have the clipboards ready to go, because, hey, this was a minor incident, minor earthquake. We checked everything out. There was some minor damage. We prepped all the boards, and that aftershock that happens at 2:35 the next morning, and now you and your team redeploy, and oh yeah, it's not an aftershock, it was the big one. The thing that happened yesterday was the foreshock. Ridgecrest, 4th of July. We were getting briefed on our fire patrol, and there was an earthquake. And our captain showed us what was going on, how everything sets up, explained us the process, and then said, hey, you guys are hoping that this was going to be the big one, so you could go to action, but just be aware of aftershocks. And I said, well, this could be a foreshock. Turns out it was the foreshock. The bigger earthquake in Ridgecrest was the next morning. So you never know. This is why it's better to make sure that you have everything taken care of when you do the demobilization. Don't wait till later, because if you don't do it today, it probably won't be done tomorrow either. And this happens all the time. So prep it, ready, and then if you need it again, it's ready to go and you don't have to clean up before you get started. The goals of all of this, big picture of community emergency response team, of Ready Your Los Angeles neighborhood, or Map Your Neighborhood, our neighborhood team program, is do the greatest good for the greatest number of people in the shortest amount of time. Respond safely. Don't bring victims to an incident. Stand up the staging area. It needs to be out of the way, and all your members should know where to go, so that even if you can't communicate with them, if they don't have radios, you can't call people on their cell phones, they just know where to go and they're ready to go when they get there. Send out damage assessment teams, find out where people need help. Send out incident response teams to help those people who can be helped. Reassure your neighbors that help is there. It's probably the worst feeling in the world when you've just been woken up by a massive earthquake. You've never experienced an earthquake before. You come out of your home, you think the fire department's there to help, and they drive right by you and they keep going. And that's going to happen. And if you actually need help and they're not stopping to help you, or you can't call 911, someone's trapped in your home, you're going to panic, and it is the worst feeling in the world. But then these guys and women with green vests and helmets show up and they say, we're here to help. You don't care who they are. You're caring that they're here to help. And that's what we want people to know about the community emergency response team. We've been trained by the professionals. We're here to help. Mitigate issues and dangers before they become problems. Minor injuries, if you can take care of them now, won't become medical emergencies later. A small fire you can put out won't become a fully engulfed home that burns someone's home down. A gas leak that you can take care of now won't be an explosion later. if as soon as you can, establish communications with the fire department in response, because you're a force multiplier for them. You're providing information to them, and they're going to do the things that you can't do. You're not trained to do, you're not equipped to do, you don't have the resources to deal with. These trainings online are not the big picture. They are the big picture, but it's really you getting into the field and practicing the skills, seeing all of this in motion. I'm giving you an overview. On October 28th, Saturday, starting at 9 a.m., going to 2:30, and this is going to be a long drill. We're doing a in-person CERT medical triage drill. You say it's CERT, it is open to everyone. If you're not CERT trained and you want to come out and see it, our CERT trained people need to know how to work with people who are not trained. If you happen to be, an EMT, but you're not CERT trained, you're going to be an asset to the team. If you have military experience, you're going to be an asset to the team. If you just want to find out more about the CERT training, come out, observe, or participate. There's room for everyone. The website, CERT-LA. Oh, that's wrong. That should be LAFD CERT. Dash triage drill 2023.eventbrite.com. I'm going to put it in the chat. I apologize for that typo. Standardization. It's going to be at the American Legion Post 283 in Pacific Palisades. I know for some of us that's going to be a long drive. I do encourage everybody, if you're going to come out, bring your go bags, your response bags, bring snacks. We're not going to break for lunch. You're going to be given, we're going to try and have 6 to 10 scenarios, and your team is going to go from scenario to scenario, and your time to break, recharge, drink water, eat a snack is going to be between the scenarios. It's intentionally an hour longer than our last drill we did in 2019, because we want you to start getting the idea that, hey, if the earthquake happens, I'm in our neighborhood. There's no lunchtime. There's no lunch break. If I didn't eat breakfast, I need to be prepared to be out there for a while. I want to give you that feeling now so you get used to it. All right. So any questions? I want to thank everyone for sticking around for this. This was one of our longer presentations. It was a lot, but it was designed as an overview. I wanted to give you the big picture of where things are, and then I want you to come out to the drills so you can actually see this in action. I will go ahead and allow people to unmute. Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi, I'm a member of the homeless community, and all of these things are fantastic ideas on how to set up kind of a community response situation. But I don't know how they would work within the frameworks of the dynamics of the homeless community. What would you suggest to start connecting teams or other professionals to kind of deal with the specifics of that community framework?
Oh, that is a lot. It is a much bigger, it's a question that requires a lot of thought and effort. And I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know who does. I don't know that anyone does. I would be willing to work with you on it, because
Okay.
it needs an answer, but it's not something that I've been able to think about. It's not something I have experience in. It's it is a priority. However, I wish I could give you an answer, and I can't. But I would love to maybe talk offline and see if maybe we can work with the fire department on something. I'm While I put these trainings on regularly, we put on the drills. I'm a volunteer. All of our coordinators are volunteers. We all have full-time jobs. Some of us might be retired, but we're not sworn firefighters. We don't work for the city. So I wish I could give you a better answer, but I'm going to put my email address in the chat here.
Okay.
Please email me, and let's definitely talk offline.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions, comments, as Chin likes to say, editorials? Jose, was there anything in the chat? I wasn't watching it. Doesn't look like
No, very little. There was just somebody that posted that they sent their PDF to the printer to get the CERT manual done.
that's a big manual. That's an
That's
expensive.
a huge one.
It sure is me that had a question when you were speaking. It's Tracy.
Oh, Tracy, yes.
I was just going to ask you while you were speaking, was that information in the manual, and could I follow along in the manual? But I put my hand down when you said you would answer questions at the end. Yeah, it is a very thick manual, but it is very informative.
Mm-hmm. The CERT training is great. It's written by professionals, people who understand the big picture, understand standard operating procedures and guides. It's not written by people like myself, who is not a firefighter, people like you who don't work in this field. So one of the great things about a CERT drill run by the fire department is it shows you that if 50 people are standing outside of a derailed train, you can do something about it. I don't know how realistic that is. What we're working, when we built the neighborhood team program format, the idea is it's you and your neighbors, and they might not be CERT trained, and there's not going to be a lot of them, and there's certainly not going to be 50 CERT trained people on your block. It's how do we realistically and over time set up a staging area and hopefully deal with the problem without having all the resources in the world right there, like we do in the drills.
What about people who speak other languages?
I wish I speak other languages. We need people who speak other languages because, especially in the city of Los Angeles or other large cities, Miami, there's going to be people that we can't communicate with as easily. American Sign Language, there's a huge Chinese population in some parts, Armenian population, and especially the older generation doesn't necessarily speak English. So it is something that we need to work on and figure out how we can work with those populations. And this is where it's going to be customized to your neighborhood. If you have a large population that doesn't speak English, you're going to have to start recruiting people, maybe children of those families, and get them to be the translators.
Yeah, I have a question, Patrick. What is the purpose of bringing your go bag to the staging area?
You want to get an idea of if you have everything you need in that go bag, in your response bag, or if you have too much. If you bring it there and you have a 50-pound bag and then you walk your damage assessment route and you're exhausted by the time you get back, it's something to consider that maybe you need to lighten that load. There's the story of World War II when all the soldiers hit the beach. Most of them, a lot of them dropped a lot of their gear because they were overloaded. Now, some of that gear was vital and they regretted dropping it. So it is a balancing act. And that's why you should always bring your bag and say, hey, what do I need to add? What do I need to remove? Martha?
Hi there. I was in one of the very first CERT training classes.
Oh, wow.
LAFD. Yes, I'm that old. And things have changed quite a bit. Are there any in-person trainings these days besides the one that you've mentioned? Because when I did it, they came out to, well, I did it twice. I did it once at work when I was working for DWP, and the other time when at our neighborhood association, and they sent people actually out to us to train us. Is there anything like that now?
Generally speaking, the classes are held in the neighborhood or at community centers or somewhere that wants to host a class. And I mean, theoretically, if you have a big enough backyard, the fire department will teach the class there, and you can have your neighbors. I mean, that realistically is a possibility in some areas.
Yeah.
In other areas, there's not much in terms of community centers. We have a massive parking or a lack of parking problem in Northeast LA. We
Mhm.
have a center that can hold 100 people, but there's no parking. So it is something realistic to consider when you're looking for venues. Talk to your coordinator. Which part of you still live in the city of Los Angeles?
Oh, yes.
Which part of
Within
LA?
5 miles of where I live now for over 71 years.
Wow.
As I said, I wasn't born here. I'm old, but
Experienced. You're experienced.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Some
So
places
where do
would
you
call me
live?
a classic. I live in Midtown.
Midtown. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So
That's you, Patrick.
Yeah, it could be Central Bureau or West Bureau or
Probably
South.
West Bureau.
Okay, West
Oh,
Bureau.
West Bureau. Okay. So maybe
probably
Battalion 5?
then. Yeah.
19,
9? No,
not 19.
not Battalion 19. No.
No, I forget
Fire
which
Station
battalion.
19?
18, I think. I was wrong. 18.
18.
Oh,
18
so you're South Bureau.
Oh, am
and-
I really? Okay.
And Chin isn't
Yeah.
here.
I was
That's
thinking I'm in-
Battalion 18, Fire
Thank
Station
you.
61.
Thank you.
So,
Yes.
reach out to me, and I'm going to put you in touch with Chin. He's the South Bureau coordinator.
Thank you very much.
Again, I'm going to put my email address, Patrick at disaster. If I can spell it. disasterprep.org.
Yes, I have it there.
Reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with Chin and he can help you get a class, or maybe there is a class nearby and you just don't know about it yet.
That's quite possible. I've been out of touch for a number of years. But when I saw the bulletin, I got really excited.
Yeah, glad you could make it. And I would love to hear how the CERT training has changed since you took it. One of the first. Okay, David.
NIDA actually taught a lot of the courses, a lot of the classes, and I know him pretty well.
Hmm.
So,
David, go ahead and ask your question.
David, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, it's one of these newfangled things. I had a question in the chat that somebody just jumped over. Do you happen to have any documentation or any materials that you could send to other CERT organizations that are in the process of creating one or midstream and creating a CERT team or a CERT program within a locality, not necessarily in California, but someplace in, like you said, Midwest or East Coast?
So
And a
just
comment? Go ahead.
just posted our documents website. I mentioned the step-by-step guides, documents.ntp-la.org. If they're trying to set up a proper CERT team that's an official team with the program manager, they'll have to reach out, find out who is running the CERT program in their area. But our step-by-step guides are here. We do have some guides on how to set up a local neighborhood team. Again, I'm talking about bottom up.
Right.
Is the top down when you're dealing with the fire department or sheriffs or whoever's running the CERT program in your area or their
Right.
area.
Makes sense. And I have a quick comment. You're talking about World War II and the D-Day landings in Normandy.
Mhm.
A lot of the people who were loaded down didn't make it to the beach because they drowned in the water because of the weight of the equipment that they were carrying.
Yeah.
Food for
So,
thought.
yeah. Definitely. This is why I encourage everybody to bring your stuff, even if it's a classroom setting. Bring your stuff. Get experience lifting, carrying, walking with it. And if you realize, hey, I'm carrying way too much, figure out, how to start to lighten the load a little bit. Farah.
Hi, it's actually, my mom's got a question. She had trouble
Yeah.
signing on.
Okay, yeah, two things. I did not get the email with all of the information on it. But
Mhm.
even though Farah had hers and I tried to get on through hers and it wouldn't work. That's one. And number two, are you gonna have an overview on this that we can look at this again?
So this is being live streamed on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So as soon as this is done, it'll be available for rewatch.
Okay,
You can share it. I'm going to post that. You can search for LAFD CERT coordinators
okay, LAFD CERT coordinators.
in YouTube, and you'll find our channel under live. You'll find the replay of this.
Okay, good.
Wonderful. Thank
And
you very much.
unfortunately,
Patrick?
we use Eventbrite, and if there's a typo in your email address or it went to spam or something, it's unfortunately there's not too much we can do about that.
Yeah,
There were over 240 people signed up for this, and we didn't exceed 80. So I suspect there might have been other problems going on. I don't know. Unfortunately, technology is not perfect, and 1 month everything works, and the next month everything's a train wreck. So not too much, unfortunately.
Hey, Patrick, Nadia posted something about Listos,
Mhm.
California on the chat.
Yeah, at least this is a great program.
Multiple languages, that's a basic thing that she posted, really. It's,
Yeah,
Spanish, it's got different languages. Spanish, French,
Tagalog, Vietnamese.
Tagalog, yeah, Vietnamese. They got it. It's a good program.
Thank you. Attila? Oops, sorry. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Attila, and ask your question. I apologize for muting you.
Are you? Hi,
We can hear you.
do you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. I connect from Iran. I have a question. Its program applicable in other countries, or what part of this program are very important for implementation?
I'm sorry. Ask the question one more time.
Is this program applicable in other countries?
Yes.
And
The CERT training is available in multiple countries. I don't have an exhaustive list, but it is very well regarded in a lot of countries.
okay, I know about them, but I have a question about what parts of this program are very important doing.
I'm sorry, one more time. I'm having
I think
difficulty.
he's asking what's the important parts of the program, the most important parts.
Yes.
It is really, excuse me, the important part is to be able to help your neighbors safely. We don't want to bring a victim to an incident. And so it's basic training on how to be safe, how to be prepared for disaster, how to help your neighbors without becoming a victim. That's the core of the community emergency response team training. Any program can add more to that. They do excuse me. They do, basic medical. They do light search and rescue, how to use a fire extinguisher. Those are the core parts of the program. Other parts, and I've heard that other CERT programs throughout the country, in the US at least, even add evidence, search and rescue. I'm not familiar because we don't teach it in LA. But I heard that was a shock to me that I just heard about that, and Vincent participated in that at the National CERT Conference. But talk to your fire department, talk to your emergency management department, talk to law enforcement, and if it's something that they're interested in doing, getting you prepared as a community, it's something that they can offer. I don't know how they're run in other countries. So I can't give you a better answer than that.
Okay,
So, Jim-
thank you very much.
Thank you. Yuki.
I suggest also contacting the local hospitals, see how their procedures are to help out, plus the police department. And in some cases, some countries maybe not, but the military establishment, to see what they have for search and rescue emergencies.
Yeah, that's a great idea as well. If you don't get my emails, you found someone shared this information with you. Sign up for my email list at certvolunteer.org. We do these monthly trainings every third Wednesday of the month, and then we do post them online as well. But we're working on building up our audience and building up the training, and then bringing in different skills and trainings that we can offer every month, so we keep it interesting. And I did
Goes on.
Go ahead, Yuki.
Hi, Patrick. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our amazing coordinators. I wanted to just say for everybody who hasn't done CERT, when Patrick was talking about when we go out in teams and we have to check in, sometimes you're just so into the moment trying to, do whatever it is you're doing that sometimes it's bad, but sometimes we forget to report in. And I love it when the radio is sort of like, Alpha team, where are you? Because I know we have backup. And this is so important. If you get the training, you're going to use it. If you think of what's going on in Morocco right now, or with the, and what's going on in Libya with the floods, there is no way emergency services can handle what's going on. So it's average citizens. You're looking on the news at regular people digging people out from under rubble. So you will use these skills. And then, there are certain things that I call personal emergencies, or your personal disaster, like a pipe breaks and floods your house. You've got things plugged up, or wires fall down or in your front yard, or you have a kitchen fire and now there's a lot of smoke and you need to leave. The other night I had a plumbing disaster and I grabbed my go bag. I have two go bags, my CERT bag, and I have a go bag for evacuation. And I just went to a hotel, but when I opened my bag, it's been packed for a minute. I really was like, my game is good. I had everything I needed. I even had house slippers at the hotel, and I had all my chargers and, my external batteries fully charged, everything. I didn't have to look in that bag at all. And that particular bag is my carry-on bag when I travel, but I keep it packed for emergencies. And then when I get ready to travel, all that stuff is in packing cubes, goes out, and whatever I'm traveling with goes in. Then when I come back, it goes back in again. But you're going to use these skills. How many of you have witnessed a car accident where there might have been injuries or someone has fallen down? Recently, a coworker of mine, her father passed away. Her sister and her sister's husband and adult children lived in the house, and no one knew CPR.
Jeez.
No one knew CPR. And this is a person who the man's had heart problems for 20 years. Things that we don't think about. Elderly parent falls down. We fall down. This training is going to help you tremendously. Even if you never experience a huge disaster like an earthquake.
Yeah, Yuki brings up a great point, and I've heard this before, and I kind of I want to change my mentality when I talk about it, but it's hard. It's ingrained. It's not about disaster preparedness. It's about everyday life. And the CERT training teaches you skills that should have been taught in high school, that should have been taught in school, teaches you how to be prepared for the unexpected. Like who expected a pandemic, and who expected that suddenly toilet paper and water would be unavailable and there'd be long lines to get it? Well, the people who were prepared for a disaster didn't need to panic. They already had a stockpile, not a huge, they weren't selling toilet paper out of their garage, but we were prepared for this because we thought about it. People are like, well, I didn't know that toilet paper and water would be the first things to run out. It's like, well, if you've ever camped, what's the two things that you kind of can't live without? Toilet paper and clean, drinkable water. And so, of course, and of course, as soon as people heard that they were running out, they started hoarding, buying up the entire store, which only made things worse. But it is CERT is so much more than just disaster preparedness, disaster response. It is, they teach you leadership skills. They teach you preparedness for, again, the unexpected. So yeah, great points, Yuki. Martha.
I want to add that as the training has evolved over the years, and I know that I'm very much out of date. So I did a lot of training for the Department of Water and Power, and we didn't just call it just earthquake preparedness. It was, and this was a big deal for me, it's emergency preparedness. We have no idea what kind of emergencies there are going to be, because, and we can try, but I know that when we had the riots, I don't remember how many years ago, my husband and I were at work. We drove home, but we were prepared. And I taught emergency preparedness for DWP. And so I'm very annoyed with myself that I haven't kept up with it. But I'm so glad that you are giving me this opportunity to be part of another organization again, because it is very important, and it's important for all of us to remember that we all want to belong, and that the more people who belong to CERT, the better off our city will be.
Absolutely. And you make a good point. There was a fire on a freeway near Los Angeles, and it shut down the freeway, and people were trapped on the freeway. Right. They literally had to get out of their vehicles and walk a couple miles back to get off the freeway. They left their vehicles there.
Yes.
Could you imagine if you're a woman and you're coming home from work and you have high heels on, and suddenly you have to walk a couple, 2, 3, 4 miles to get to the nearest off-ramp to get off the freeway? Can you do that in your high heels? Or do you have a pair of sneakers, walking shoes in your car, and then a bottle of water, a few protein bars to bring with you, an extra jacket, or a space blanket that doesn't take up much space just in case it gets cold and windy? You have something you can wrap around yourself. That's the kind of mentality we want to encourage people, is think, okay, what happens if the unexpected happens and I need to, and this goes back to the question about the homeless. What if I have to live out of my car for a few days? Do I have things in my vehicle that I can do that? Do I have a flashlight in case I have to get out and it's dark? Do I have, some high calorie rations that are temperature safe, lifeboat rations,
right?
In case I need to eat something? Do I have, and you can go way too far in terms of preparedness, but if you start thinking about it, there's certain reasonable things you can do. You can go way off the reservation and actually have diapers and a whole toilet setup. That's way more than anybody needs to do. But just start thinking about it. And if you drive any amount of distance to work and back or school, there's an actual real possibility you could not be home when that earthquake happens, or you can't get home and you're stranded out there. Now, what are you going to do?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. People laugh at me because I keep water in my car and I have lots of water at home. But that they stopped laughing when they realized that the stores were running out of water, and they would come to me. So you're absolutely right. And I have always been a fanatic about it. In another lifetime, we lived in, I spent my summers at Cape Cod on a street that, on a 2-block street that ran to the ocean. And we were at the top of the street because we were at the poor end. But the people at the bottom of the street who had the fancy cars and the fancy houses their houses were destroyed. They had to come up the street to the rest of us who had food and we weren't prepared for an emergency in those days, but we had food. We had gas stoves so we could still cook because electricity was out, and we didn't have cell phones in the dark ages. But we still had party lines, but we had food and we had water. And because we had gas, we were able to cook for the whole street. And so, that's one of the reasons that I'm so involved in emergency preparedness, because I'm so aware of it. Because the people down at the other end of the street who thought that they were real fancy had nothing. And they had to come to us. And that's pretty much the same thing that's going on with the CERT teams, is because we're protecting other people. And so I'm very glad to be back and part of the CERT family.
I'm glad
it's family. It is a family.
Yeah, and when I do my presentation on neighborhood security and situational awareness, I emphasize that you need to get to know your neighbors. You need to get to know them before the disaster happens.
Mm-hmm.
And and even if there's no earthquake, just getting to know them, having contact, say, hey, I'm going to go out of town for a couple weeks. Can you watch over my place in case something happens? Let me know. Or they know, hey, I know you're out of town. There's someone, going through your place with a flashlight. Is that you? Or, hey, there's a fire that's coming. Are you home? And I heard someone I know out in Diamond Bar, when the fires were out there, he was out of town and he didn't know about it until his neighbor called him, and he's going, what? So it's life, getting to know your neighbors now, neighbor helping neighbor, and hopefully you can help your neighbor. Hopefully your neighbor can help you. It's not even a quid pro quo. It's when the disaster occurs, it's all hands on deck. And it's making sure that we don't reach a point where we become desperate.
Absolutely.
Because desperate people are unpredictable. And you could have someone who is the nicest person in the world. They could become desperate. They've lost everything. And they've got a family, kids that they need to feed, and they're starving. And you don't know what they're going to do. They might become violent because they have no other choice of take from you and give to their family so they don't starve. But if you can make sure that they don't reach that point, you and your neighbors together as a community, make sure that your neighbors don't reach a point where they become desperate and have to make that decision. That's where we're all going to be better off. And that's where the community is going to recover after the earthquake or whatever natural disaster it is. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming. It is 9 o'clock. We do like to, make sure everyone, we keep these things on time. So again, I really appreciate you coming out. This is online on our YouTube channel. If you're interested, check it out. Just search for CERT volunteers, LAFD CERT coordinators on YouTube, and you can see our other presentations as well. and then share them with your neighbors and talk to your battalion coordinator. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I can help get you in touch with your battalion coordinator, get a class in your area, and get your neighbors into them. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night.